People have this image of Andre Agassi, the rebel, the kid who hated tennis while playing it better than almost anyone alive. The bleached hair, the denim shorts, the attitude that said, "I don't care what you think of me." That image was real, parts of it anyway. But what that image hid was something most people never saw coming from Andre Agassi. A capacity for love that ran deeper than anything he ever showed on a tennis court. Andre Agassi loved fiercely his wife, his children, his faith. The game he claimed to hate but couldn't walk away from for 29 years. But there was one person, one man, whose place in Agassi's life existed outside every category. Outside rivalry, outside tennis, outside the careful image Agassi constructed and then spent the second half of his life dismantling. That man was Gil Reyes, not a player, not a champion, not someone whose name appears on any Grand Slam trophy. Gil Reyes was Agassi's trainer, his strength coach, his closest friend for over 3 decades. And understanding what Gil meant to Andre Agassi means understanding what Andre Agassi actually was underneath everything the world thought it saw. 1989. Agassi is 19 years old and already famous in a way that has nothing to do with Grand Slams because he hasn't won one yet. The images everywhere, the commercials, the magazine covers, the carefully manufactured rebellion. But underneath the image is a kid who genuinely doesn't know who he is, who grew up being pushed into a sport he didn't choose by a father who didn't ask, who became famous before he became himself. Nick Bollettieri's academy in Florida introduced Agassi to Gil Reyes. And from the first conversation, something was different. Gil wasn't interested in the image, wasn't impressed by the fame or intimidated by the personality. He looked at Andre Agassi and saw something nobody else was bothering to look for. The person. Not the player, the person. Gil asked Agassi questions nobody asked him. Not about tennis, not about schedules or opponents or rankings, about what he wanted, about what made him feel alive, about who he was when the cameras weren't there. Agassi had never been asked those questions by anyone in his professional life. The effect was immediate and permanent. Within months, Gil Reyes became something Agassi hadn't had inside tennis since he could remember. Someone completely on his side. Not on the side of his results, not on the side of his ranking, on the side of him. Andre. The human being wearing the tennis player's clothes. Here is something people don't understand about Andre Agassi's physical transformation. The early Agassi, fast, talented, explosive, was not built. He was natural, raw gifts expressing themselves without real structure. And raw gifts have a ceiling. They plateau. They get exposed under sustained pressure by players who have built something more durable. Gil Reyes changed that. Systematically, methodically, with a patience that matched Agassi's impatience and somehow turned it into fuel instead of obstacle. The weight training, the conditioning, the nutrition, the recovery protocols that allowed Agassi to compete at the highest level well into his mid-30s when players with lesser physical foundations had already broken down and retired. By the time Agassi was winning his later Grand Slams, the 1999 French Open, the 2003 Australian Open at age 32, his body was stronger than it had been at 22. That doesn't happen by accident. That happens because someone spent a decade building something that was designed to last. Gil Reyes built Andre Agassi's second career with his own hands. Literally, every weight session, every conditioning drill, every recovery protocol, Gil was there. But the physical transformation, remarkable as it was not the real gift. The real gift was something else entirely. Tennis is a lonely sport. People don't fully understand that unless they've lived it. You walk on court alone. You make decisions alone. When things go wrong, and things always go wrong eventually, there is nobody to turn to. No teammate to take the pressure for a moment. No coach you can call timeout and talk to. Just you and the ball and the opponent and the crowd and the weight of everything you've built and everything you're afraid of losing. Agassi spent years walking onto courts with that loneliness, with the feeling that underneath the bravado and the image and the carefully constructed persona, he was fundamentally alone in the most important moments of his professional life. Gil Reyes ended that. Not by being on the court with him, nobody can do that, but by being in the corner, by being the face Agassi looked for when things got difficult, by being the constant in a professional life full of variables. Coaches changed, strategies changed, rankings went up and down and up again. Opponents came and went, and the image transformed completely from the denim shorts kid to the shaved head serious champion. Gil stayed. Through the crystal meth period that Agassi has spoken about publicly, with a courage that cost him enormously. Through the ranking collapses and the comeback years. Through the marriages and the losses and the physical deterioration that every athlete eventually faces. Gil Reyes stayed through all of it without judgment and without condition. Agassi has said it plainly, in interviews that left no room for interpretation. Gil Reyes saved his life, not his career. His life. Those are different things. Careers are about results and trophies and rankings. Lives are about whether you make it through the difficult years intact enough to appreciate the good ones. Agassi made it through. Gil was the reason. Now, what strikes people who observed Agassi and Gil Reyes together, players, coaches, journalists who spent time around the team, was the communication, or rather, the absence of it. They didn't need much language between them. A look across the court during a changeover. A specific word at a specific moment. The kind of shorthand that only develops between people who have spent thousands of hours together and learned each other completely. Agassi has described moments in crucial matches, fifth sets of grand slams, deciding moments where everything was on the line, when he looked toward Gil's corner and felt something settle inside him. Not information, not tactical advice, something more fundamental. A reminder that whatever happened in the next few points, someone who knew him completely was watching and wasn't going anywhere. That sounds simple. It isn't. Most people go through entire careers, entire lives, without finding one person who knows them completely and chooses to stay anyway. Agassi found that person at 19 in a gym in Florida and held on to it for the rest of his professional life and beyond. September 2006. Agassi's last U.S. Open. His body is breaking down. Bone spurs in his spine that make every match a negotiation with pain that most people couldn't function through. He loses in the third round to Benjamin Becker, a young German nobody that nobody remembers except as the answer to a trivia question. What people remember is the walk off the court, Agassi in tears, the crowd on their feet, a standing ovation that lasted minutes. And through all of it, through the tears and the crowd noise, and the wait of 29 years ending in a single afternoon. Agassi looking for one face, Gil's face. In his retirement speech, standing on that court at the U.S. Open, with his voice breaking and his composure barely holding, Agassi said something that cut through everything else. He thanked Gil Reyes, specifically, personally, with an emotion that had nothing to do with professional gratitude and everything to do with something that had no adequate word in tennis vocabulary. Love. That was the word. The only word that fit. Andre Agassi won 8 Grand Slams. He held the world #1 ranking. He completed the career Grand Slam. He won Olympic gold. He built a school in Las Vegas for underprivileged children that has become his defining legacy. He wrote a memoir of extraordinary honesty that changed how athletes talk about their own lives. None of it happened without Gil Reyes. Not because Gil played the tennis, nobody else could do that, but because Gil created the conditions in which Agassi could be both a great tennis player and a complete human being simultaneously, could push through pain and doubt and the accumulated weight of a complicated life and still walk onto a court and compete at the highest level. The greatest players in tennis history are remembered for their titles, their technique, their rivalries, their defining moments on the biggest stages. Agassi will always be remembered for those things too. But ask him directly what he is most proud of, what meant the most, what he would choose again without hesitation. And the answer has nothing to do with trophies. It has to do with a man named Gil Reyes who looked at a 19-year-old kid pretending to be something he wasn't and decided to stay anyway, who built something with him that outlasted every ranking and every title and every carefully constructed image. Andre Agassi truly loved him more than anyone, and Gil Reyes truly deserved it.